Hello everyone, my name is Karen Schoen and I am your host today for the Panhandle Political Forum. And over the past couple of weeks, obviously we all understand that this is a very, very critical election. But people have been making comments like, Americans are finally waking up. And then I began to realize there's nothing new under the sun. And what we're experiencing today was really the same thing that every government, every type of government has experienced from the time that governments were recorded. The difference is that the terminology has been changed. So the ideology remains the same, but the implementation of that ideology is what changes through time. But if you understand the original ideology, the original thought behind documents that we have in America, it will make it easier to understand what is happening in today's political atmosphere. So let's take a look at our ancients and what did they actually say? Well, we can go back to the recorded time of Plato, who wrote a book called The Republic. And in the Republic, Plato determined that there are 5 stages of government. And for those of you that don't know Plato, he was a philosopher. This book was written in 380 AD, and it's still applicable today. And one of the things that our founders discovered was that if Americans, if the people were educated, then the people would know what to do. And that was said by Thomas Jefferson. But Plato's famous quote was, "The penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors." And hasn't that been happening when you sit and you listen to a politician and you say, "I know more than he does"? Why is that? How is that possible? So let's take a brief step back in history and let's see what Plato described and how it's applicable today. He said there were 5 stages of government. And the first one he called the royal stage, or the aristocracy. And in this stage, the actual rulers, the aristocrats who ran the government, who were the rulers of their local area, listened to their subjects. Today we call those subjects constituents. But these people came from the farms and the business areas, and they knew and they brought to the town square what they were asked by the people that they were representing. They knew the problems, and when they went to the town square, they were able to articulate them. As things began to develop, they flipped into the second stage of government, which is called a democracy. And that is when the government is run by the lovers of honor and fame. And Plato wrote, "Now that a man answers to this form of government, he is a lover of honor, claiming to be a ruler." There was very little substance in these people. The people mostly came from the Greek theater. Remember, they didn't have the internet and cell phones and all the good things that we have today. So the majority of the information came when the people gathered, and what was the best way for masses to gather and to learn an issue was from the theater. And often those actors became the leaders. And the fame became so important to them that they stepped outside and forgot that they were there for a particular purpose. In this quest for fame, they openly acquired money. Money became the prize. And because they never created their own money, they were never the business people, they were never the farmers, the only way they could accumulate money was to begin the taking of money from others. And that is how we flipped into the third stage of government, which is called an oligarchy. And these people are true lovers of money and gain. Think about what I'm saying. That is what is on their mind. That is what is important. And as a ruling class, They would raise the taxes on everyone else except themselves. And then they would pass laws, but they themselves would be exempt from those laws. Does anybody remember Obamacare? Think about our Congress. Are they exempt from Obamacare? You bet they are. So we have what's forming is an oligarchy. I call them a regime. Same idea, different name. Same definition, different name. And Plato began to realize that in an oligarchy, the only way that oligarchs could remain the ruler is to divide and begin to divide the people. And obviously, when you begin to take money from one group, you make that group become subservient because their existence now is going to be dependent upon how much money they can produce for the oligarchs. So many people, we have the division which becomes the very wealthy and now the very poor. And look what's going on in America today. All the statistics are saying what's shrinking. The middle class is shrinking. And the oligarchy grows into a democracy as the middle class or as the producers begin to realize that their sole purpose in life is just to fund. And who are they funding? They are funding the oligarchs. Well, how do you get people to buy into that? You create an atmosphere of tolerance where you refuse to accept any opposing viewpoint. And opposing viewpoints were often met at that time with death, immediate death. So anybody who was a dissenter could be immediately destroyed. And what Aristotle, who was Plato's student, said was that is not tolerance the last virtue of a dying society? When you have no opposition, when you have no criticism, you have no growth because everybody just goes on and does the same thing over and over. So the democracy then begins to formulate as the dissenters group together and profess some type of problem that they are being issued. And Plato warned that these people often have no experience running a government, and then they follow their former leaders, which is they will vote to take money from one group and give it to another group, all self-serving. And then we go when the democracy does not work and chaos ensues, which it always does. The people scream for a leader, and that's when a tyrant is born. And a tyrant is merely an individual who has no redeeming value because the only purpose of his tyrannical reign is for money, power, and control. And that's where we are headed today if we do not pay attention, but it fits in today's atmosphere. Let's just take a look as we look at the next slide and see how this fits in today's atmosphere. Well, we have two groups of people. Right now we have an argument between those people who want America to remain as America and those people who want to fold America into a one world government. And they have put together the Pope and Obama and the United Nations and other oligarchs throughout the world to come together to form one religion, one government, and one economy. Why? Because when you only have one, you don't have that ear of dissension. You only have that one thought, that one idea, all people coming together, all people demanding the same idea. But what happens if you don't like that idea? Well, let's go back to what did Plato say? Dissenters are usually killed. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens. So now we have, on the next slide, you'll see that we have the regime that actually runs both parties. And that's why people say it doesn't matter who we elect when they go to DC, when they go to Tallahassee, when they go and sit on the podium in our local government, they're all saying the same thing. And that's because the regime really runs both parties and they are both together on the same page. And that's why we have the hate Donald Trump crowd within the Republican Party, and we have the hate Hillary crowd within the Democratic Party. Because what's happening is the regime that likes what Hillary is saying and wants globalism doesn't make any difference whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. It just matters whether or not you want to live in a global atmosphere. Their goal, on the next slide you will see, is a one world government. And they have their love, which is the New World Order, focused on money, power, and control. So what they must do is create, you've heard this before, mutually assured destruction. And what that means is, if you are my enemy and you blow me up, then you're harming yourself. So you're going to think twice before you blow me up. That's what mutually assured destruction means. But all policies always work the same, as Plato said, all fitting within the 5 stages of government. We learn that everything is connected. Nothing happens at random. There are no such thing as coincidences. Everything happens for a reason, and everything is a lie. For in order for oligarchs to continue what they are striving for, they must lie, and they must produce programs that never work. Why do these programs never work? Because if they actually worked, then we wouldn't need government to help us anymore. So what has happened is, as we learn, if you look at the next slide, you will see that everything is connected. And all of these connections always espouse the same message. And it doesn't matter what part of our socio-economic atmosphere we come from, it's all the same. They're the same people running everything. If you look at the media, if you look at Hollywood, if you look at the different parties, who's running the show, it's always the same people. They are called globalists, and as you'll see on the next slide, they have a long laundry list of things that they want, and things that they are behind. Who are the globalists? Well, the old terminology of globalists was communists, oligarchs, tyrannical, socialists. We could go on and on. But in reality, what they have become is today's globalists. All they have done is reinvented the new word of the same thing. What are they behind? Well, there's the list of all of the things that they are behind and all of the things that they push in order to achieve their goals. But what do they really, 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 really want? They want everything that you own. Why? Because that's the only way that they can have power totally over you. There can be no other thing other than power unless you give it to them. See, power is a unique thing. Nobody can have power over me. Nobody can force me to do anything unless I allow them to do that. So by coming up with these warm, fuzzy programs, what they are doing is stripping away our power, and they are making us into tolerant, eliminating criticism, eliminating opposition. They are making us into a tolerant society. And so today, as you'll see on the next slide, we have 2 distinct differences. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are really irrelevant because it's what their ideology is that will push this election. If people are interested in the American flag and love America, love of country, and can get back that pride in ownership, owning a piece of America, get back the things that have been stripped away over the last 8 years, then Donald Trump is your man. If you believe that we should be one nation under the United Nations and flip America down into just the same old country like everything else, just the same old, so America will become just another third world country filled with people who have no allegiance to country borders or anything, then Hillary would be your gal. But regardless, if you take a look at the next slide, what we must understand, and then we can go full circle back to Plato. A man who won't stand up for what he believes is not much of a man. And doesn't that ring true when we realize that one of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that we end up being governed by our inferiors? Don't let that happen this election. Make a choice and make sure you vote. This is Karen Schoen with the Panhandle Political Forum. I can be reached at karenschoen.com, and my phone number is 850-569-1021. Thank you all for joining me.